Hello, and welcome back to the channel. I'm standing here in front of what has quickly become our new favorite place in the backyard, our fully finished gazebo. This project has been on our to-do list for way too long, and after plenty of ladder climbing, puzzling over instructions, and even a surprise rain shower or two, we finally made it happen. In today's video, we're walking you through the entire build, from the very first bolt to the little details that brought it all together. You'll see what went well, what definitely didn't, and all the little tricks we figured out along the way to keep everything from wobbling or shifting or just testing our patience. By the end, you'll have an idea of what to expect if you're planning to tackle a gazebo like this of your own. And hopefully you'll get a few laughs from our trial and error moments too. Now, let's rewind to day one and see how this gazebo adventure began.
The first thing we had to do was unbox. This gazebo came in several large boxes, 5 of them, and they were labeled 1 through 5. But honestly, those numbers felt more like a suggestion than an actual instruction. Like the manufacturer was just testing our puzzle solving skills. So we went ahead and unboxed everything except for the roof pieces and spread it all out so we could actually see what we were dealing with. The posts and beams got hauled over to our larger work area because we're pretty sure those guys will be needed first. The hardware, though, slightly terrifying. I'm convinced there were approximately 1 billion bolts in this kit. Maybe more, but who's counting? We cleaned as we went, stacking cardboard and tossing the packaging that wasn't recyclable. Once everything was sorted and the chaos was under control, we were finally ready to start assembling. Step 1 was attaching the feet onto the posts. A good gazebo really isn't just a structure, it becomes the hangout zone. Shade on hot days, a cozy spot for rainy mornings, a place to read, sip coffee, or hide from your fighting children for 5 minutes. Plus, it adds value to your backyard by creating a usable gathering area almost year-round. With the feet in place, it was time to secure the brackets to the tops of the posts, the ones that will hold the cross beams. So we laid the posts back down on the ground to get these brackets installed. This part is pretty simple, but important. Good alignment early on saves a ton of frustration later. And honestly, this is the moment where it finally starts feeling like you're building something real. Next up were the brackets for the corner supports, 2 per post. By this point, we were getting into a rhythm and picking up pace. Once all the metal bits were finally in their proper home, it was time to talk crossbeams. Crossbeams are basically the gazebo's skeleton. They're what give it its shape and strength. They tie all the posts together, keep the frame square, and prevent the entire structure from wobbling around like a shopping cart with one broken wheel. The crossbeams also carry the weight of the roof, so lining them up correctly now saves you from emotional damage later. They're long, heavy, and slightly awkward to maneuver, so teamwork definitely becomes a requirement at this stage. One of our crossbeam sections was damaged, so we took a minute to work this piece back into shape. We took our time, gently prying with a screwdriver and channel locks, so we wouldn't make things worse. Once the repair was complete, we slid in the bracket that connects the 2 sides of the beam, screwed everything together, and repeated that on the remaining 3 sides. And considering it's November, we're really enjoying some surprisingly perfect weather for day 1 of this build. The sun was out, the breeze was light, and it made us excited to imagine how amazing this spot would be once the gazebo is done. Relaxing under it with a bonfire crackling, watching movies on the projector, or just enjoying that first cup of coffee in the morning. Having a cozy outdoor hangout spot is going to be such a game changer for weekends. With all the brackets attached, it was time to add the curtain hooks into the track. There are a lot of curtain hooks, enough that we started questioning whether we should have brought snaps for this step. We counted them out carefully so each side gets the right amount. Curtains are an awesome addition. They give you privacy when you want it, and they help block wind or light, making the space way more versatile and comfortable. Now that all those tiny pieces were finally in place, we could connect the cross beams to the posts. The first two were pretty easy with just the two of us. Once they were attached, we stood up the two smaller ends of the gazebo and spaced them roughly where they need to go. They seemed to be standing on their own, but the way they wiggled made us think twice. So we recruited a couple helpers to keep them upright while we attached the back beam. This was the moment everything got too tall for ground level work. With the back beam in place, the whole structure felt a lot more stable. Then just the two of us added the final front beam. Brandon held up one end, I secured the other, and then hustled over to finish that last corner. This was officially our first real glimpse of the gazebo starting to look like, well, a gazebo. Next, we worked on the corner brackets, which help keep the entire gazebo sturdy and stable, especially important once the roof goes on and the wind starts pushing against it. They essentially lock the frame together and prevent any twisting or shifting over time. I could barely reach this part, but with a heroic stretch, I managed to finish it without pulling out a ladder. A victory in my book. Then it was finally roof time. The roof comes in two levels for ventilation, and we started with the very top section. We attached the first 4 support bars to the roof cap, and okay, we did this upside down compared to the manual. The instructions weren't making sense, so we decided to use common sense instead. I held up 2 of the bars while Brandon screwed the bolts in, and once we double-checked the manual, everything lined up. Slowly but surely, the roof started taking shape. Next, we assembled more support bars. Our preteen was nearby having the time of her life, climbing up and down the ladder like it's an amusement park ride. It's amazing how kids can turn any DIY project into a playground. These new support bars run from the corners of the base up to the corners of the roof cap. We couldn't help reminiscing about our garden railing while we worked. That project was so much fun to build, and seeing it hold all of our tools now made us feel a little nostalgic. It turned out to be one of our favorite DIYs from this past season, and it has really excited us for next year's garden to come back to life. If you missed that build, I'll link the video in the description so you can check it out. The corner bars went in quickly, and we moved on to the bars that run from the center of each side up to the center of the roof cap, 4 total. Then we added the horizontal supports across the top. At this point, the roof frame was looking very official. Then came one of the most exciting moments of the day. We finally unboxed the roof panels, and with that, we're officially done with unboxing. We laid all the panels out in order under the patio roof because we knew we wouldn't finish installing them today and rain was in the forecast. With everything sorted, it was time for our very first roof panel. We started with the upper section, and although I think we could have managed with just the 2 of us, having a third set of hands definitely made this part smoother. Next, it's time for the gazebo roof cap. This part definitely requires some patience. On our first attempt, we bumped it a little too hard and popped out one whole side of the roof panels. So before we could do anything else, we had to climb back up and snap those pieces into place again. The second time around, we wised up and used 2 sets of hands to gently guide the roof cap into position. Once it was sitting just right, we went underneath and secured it with bolts. With that finally in place, we decided to call it a day. We were just about out of daylight, and the sun was dropping faster than our energy levels. When we finally headed back inside, we discovered that our teenager had treated herself to a nice, healthy dinner. A giant pile of ice cream loaded with every topping she could find. I guess that's what we get for working so late. And the best part, she didn't even ask us if we wanted any. Kids these days, zero sympathy for parents building a whole gazebo.
Good morning. It is the next day. Yesterday we got through 25 of 42 steps. And today you might be able to see in the background, it's kind of a gray day. It's supposed to start raining a little bit after lunch, so we're racing against the clock. We're going to get started.
To get started with day 2, there were 4 more support bars that needed to be installed. I got going on these by myself while everyone else was still waking up. I'm definitely an early riser. Once the sun's up, I'm up. Sometimes before, but you'll never catch me awake after about 9:30 p.m. My bedtime is basically carved in stone. The upside is that I get a solid jump on projects like this. The downside is that everyone else thinks I start projects at an hour that should still count as nighttime. With the last of the support bars finally in place, it was time to start on the lower roof panels. I added the first 2 lower roof panels, and here's another moment where we politely ignored the instruction manual. According to the booklet, you're supposed to install all of the roof panels first and then do a grand tour around the gazebo adding bolts afterwards. In theory, that sounds efficient, but in reality, those panels slide all over the place. Every time we tried to hold one in place, another would shift out of alignment. It would have been a one-way ticket to a frustration spiral, and we've done enough DIY projects to know when an instruction manual is lying to us. So instead, we decided to add bolts anywhere that wouldn't interfere with an overlapping panel later on. Much calmer, much smarter, and highly recommended. Next, Brandon came out to help, and that's where the real progress started. Together, we tackled the large middle roof panels in each section. These pieces are big and awkward, but not really very heavy. To get the bolts through the holes, I used a small screwdriver as a guide, kind of like threading a needle. I'd poke the screwdriver through to line everything up. Brandon would feed the bolt through the opposite side, and then he'd hand me the nut so I could get it started. Once the nut was on, we'd shuffle down to the next hole and repeat the process. It was slow and clumsy at first, but once we found our rhythm, it actually went surprisingly fast. With all the large panels finally in place, we moved on to the corners, one section at a time. The corner pieces are smaller, but don't let that fool you. They're feisty. This is where adding bolts as we went became absolutely essential. If we didn't add bolts, one section would start to wiggle, and when one panel wiggled, it made the next one wiggle, and suddenly we were dealing with a whole chain reaction of chaos. Without securing each piece in the right order, it was nearly impossible to keep everything lined up. So we slowed down, took our time, and installed each panel carefully, bolt by bolt, making sure every piece was locked in before moving on to the next. As we made our way around the gazebo, our helper came out to join us. She jumped right in, tightening bolts like a pro and sprinting back and forth for more hardware whenever we ran low. Between the extra set of hands and her boundless enthusiasm, this whole section moved along way faster than it would have otherwise. What you can't really tell from the camera angle is that right around this moment, the rain decided to make an appearance. It was fairly light, but not ideal. Luckily for me, I was tucked away under the roof for most of it, staying nice and dry while still getting things done. Meanwhile, poor Brandon was out on the edge taking the full drizzle like a champ. Sorry, Brandon. Perfect timing on my part, though. One of the last steps was to install the screen between the two roof sections. This little detail does double duty, keeping the bugs out while still letting the smoke from the fire pit escape. Off camera, Brandon added the curtains, but he didn't record, so you'll just have to trust us that it happened. And here it is, the final result. We're super pleased with how it turned out. It feels sturdy, cozy, and like the perfect spot to hang out once the weather warms up again. All in all, this whole project took us about 10 hours spread over 2 days, which really wasn't too bad considering the number of pieces, bolts, and mildly confusing moments involved. In the future, we're planning to swap out the current furniture for pieces we build ourselves so we can fit both comfy lounge seating and a full dining area under the gazebo. We also still need to add a projector mount, plus some speakers and lighting to finish the space off just right. So make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on all of that in an upcoming video. Sadly, we probably won't get to use this space too much until spring, but trust me, we're counting down the days. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you on the next one.